Hi, friends, this is Antonio Alanis, and this is another week on talking about my documentation journey around publishing and illustrating my first children's picture book called Clarita Migrates North, or in Spanish, Clarita Emigra al Norte. Today, I want to talk about something that keeps coming up many times whenever I do these kinds of readings in settings. And that is a big question that I always get asked about. How do we talk to our students, to our children, about migration? And I want to share a few ideas about how I recommend talking about migration when this book is really focused on migration, and give some pointers as to how I address or talk about this kind of theme that's very much a focal point in this book. So if you're new here, my name is Antonio Alanis, and I recently published a children's picture book called Clarita Migrates North, or Clarita Migra al Norte in Spanish. And this book is about a little girl that moves country to country. When she is 5, her family decides to leave everything behind and move to a new place. And in this series, I've been documenting my journey about things that I wish I would have known as well about or before publishing my children's picture book. So, in today's conversation, I want to talk about things that are important to address and how to bring in information and talks about what it means to migrate from one country to another. So, one of the first things that I do whenever I do readings in schools or community settings or libraries is that I introduce myself to create rapport with the students. I always introduce myself by saying my name's Antonio Alanis, and I always ask the question, who here knows what an artist is or what an artist does? And I have a few students who raise their hand. And it's really fun to see the things that students bring. So I start very fundamentally talking about migration in a very relational way by talking about myself. And students give me a definition about what an artist does and where artists paint or draw. And it's usually a very fun way to start the conversation. After I introduce myself, I always ask them, what does the word migrate mean? Right? I tell them, okay, well, I'm an artist and I recently published this book and I wrote it. And then I say, now that you know the title of the book and what the book is here about, what do you think it will be about based on the title? And then I have more students raise their hands and say, well, migrate means to move from one place to another. It means to leave things behind. They love, specifically students who are in elementary school or younger, love to talk about migration in terms of what they know around animals. So anything related to animals like butterflies, geese, any kind of wildlife that moves north or south depending on the weather. They love to talk about that. So that's another great way to introduce migration and what migration means in our students in this age group. So they always tell me what they mean. And again, it's an age appropriate way of connecting migration to what they know and what they understand. So that's a great way to start introducing students to migration and what it means. And of course, I want to give you more information. Why does this matter? So let's zoom a little bit out. We are in January 2025, excuse me, 2026. And one of the biggest things in this year is talking openly about migration. The United States is going through many world changing events. Things are happening. The military is going into many cities throughout the country. Families are being separated. Many things are happening in the world, and this country is doing more and more and more. It's becoming customary to hear book banning. There have always been book bans, but more specifically, there is more targeting around the words of diversity, equity, inclusion, and important words like that are important in my work and what I want to show to the world. So it's important to talk about these things for me, not to sway any student's opinions or thoughts about migration, because I don't think that is my place or what I should be doing. My purpose in creating Clarita Migrates North is to talk about migration in an age appropriate way so that students can begin gathering language to talk about what it means to migrate. Now, personally, I reject everything that's happening around family separation, all the violence that is happening. And I want to be very careful that I don't bring in that viewpoint into classrooms, specifically when classrooms right now, at least a few that I've visited, are very careful about talking about these kinds of things. So again, I respect where I go and want to make sure that wherever I'm going, everything is okay and I can talk openly about what's happening. So again, I want to talk about belonging. I want to talk about things that are important. Family reunions, the love, the hope, about what it means to move from one place to another. And my idea about writing this book is not to change the law. I don't think I can. I'm not. I'm not a legislator. I'm not someone who works for Congress or someone who writes policy, anything like that. But something that I do know is that I am a cultural worker. And one voice that I do have, I want to use it to inform culture, continue defending family unification, family union, and the dignity of people to find wherever they want to go. Now, I'm not saying that I know exactly or how to talk about these very difficult themes, such as migration, but I do want to offer a working definition and working strategy, and of course, always open for growth in terms of how I approach migration and talk about migration in general in my work, specifically reading to students and reading in school settings. So that's the context. That's where I'm coming from. And it's important to talk about the context so that all of us are understanding. There was a school that I was planning to read my book to, and it did not end up working because they asked me that every student who would listen to the story would have to get parental permission. So they would have to have a signed permission slip that they could listen to the book. So again, that's what's happening right now in 2026. And I want to continue talking about this because as cultural workers, as a cultural worker, I can defend my community, my people, my story, and storytelling. So I'll be talking about this in part 2.